In this presentation, we will discuss and elaborate a controversial topic regarding Jose Rizal, who was claimed an American-sponsored hero. We come to know Dr. Rizal as the Philippines' national hero. His heroism, life, and works are reflected within the pages of our school textbooks and referenced across history books. Filipinos and non-Filipinos also saw him as a symbol of goodness because of how he expressed his love for his country and fought for its freedom through a non-violent way. Writing. Within our country's history, the Philippine Revolution of 1896 to 1901 was the period when Filipinos were most united, most involved, and most spirited to fight for a common cause, freedom. When it comes to the actual involvement of Jose Rizal in the revolution, however, it remains an issue and a controversy. Historians do not deny the major role of Rizal in the country's struggle for reforms and independence. His writings, particularly the Noli Me Tangere and Filibusterismo, were viewed as the guiding force for other patriots to rally for the country's cause. But some historians do not credit the hero as the leader of the revolution, or even his actual role in the fight for freedom. This thought had always overshadowed the reputation of Rizal on whether or not he was deserving of the title of national hero in the eyes of Filipinos, despite the fact that it was also through the sponsorship of Americans that led him to that title.
Most anti-Rizal sentiments were on historians' views on him being a reformist. Additionally, their basis is on Rizal's manifesto on December 15. He called to the Filipino people and stated his stance against the revolution and called it a barbaric act, and that change must come from above, not from below. Renato Constantino, a historian, insists that Rizal is a true blue reformist and thinks that his reputation overshadowed the revolution. From his work, Veneration Without Understanding, hindi natin bigyan ng tumpak na papahalaga ang revolution dahil hindi niya ito sinatukan at inakwil na panganya ito. Translating to, we did not give a precise appreciation to the revolution because he did not involve himself in it and even rejected it. He also considered Rizal's actions a form of betrayal. Another quote, sa katunayan, takasilan ang mga pananalitang yaon sampakat na kakaiba sa Espanya na mga Filipino. Itinakwil ni Rizal ang tanging pagkilos na bumuo sa makabansang hangarin. In fact, those words are treacherous because the Filipinos are struggling. Rizal rejected the only action that builds nationalist aspirations. Nonetheless, a lot continued to believe in Rizal, since he was already a hero to many Filipinos even before the Americans fully colonized their country. Although due to his popularity, they used it and his ideals for their project of the public school education system. Other Filipino historians take on Rizal being an American-made hero, one being Feliz Prudence Santa Maria, a food historian. In her work, The Mission of Jose P. Rizal, and I quote, "The Americans did not entirely establish their occupation of the Philippines during the time. Also, Emilio Aguinaldo proclaimed the first Rizal Day, December 30, 1838. This day, 2 years after his execution, was in honor of Rizal and other heroes who died during the Spanish domination of the Philippines." Another historian, Ambeto Campo, in his work Without the Overcoat, stated, Rizal was already recognized by the Katipunan during their plans for revolution. His work of The Last Farewell was translated into Tagalog by Andres Bonifacio and was distributed in order to inspire more Filipinos. End of quote.
Now, to further understand the American-sponsored hero criticism about Rizal, we have to dive into Renato Constantino's essay Veneration Without Understanding. Renato Constantino is a Filipino historian, and he published this essay on December 30, 1969, during Rizal Day. He entitled the essay Veneration Without Understanding because he says that Rizal is greatly respected without being fully understood. In the essay, he attempted to show the real Rizal and the truth behind his heroism. He also questioned whether Dr. Jose Rizal deserves to be our national hero, saying that there is a need to recognize new heroes in this day and age. These are the main points in Veneration Without Understanding. Essentially, the anti-Rizal sentiments and criticisms are rooted from Rizal's lack of support towards the revolution against the Spaniards. As the masses were being enlightened and awakened by their struggles under the Spanish regime, A revolution had surfaced which Rizal opposed to. According to Constantino, Rizal's repudiation is somewhat a treasonous act, given the fact that independence was the nation's aspiration. During those times when the people united towards the fight for freedom, Rizal's regard under revolution played a big part in its course, as he instigated the country's enlightenment during that period. Further into the critique, Rizal's social status was examined, and Constantino says that his upbringing as an ilustrado limited his understanding of the true needs and desires of his countrymen. This might be what led Rizal to underestimate the capability of the people to move independently and pursue a revolution. Hence, Rizal was labeled a reformist in the text, which was said to have determined his intentions that were reflected in his writings. He continued to criticize Rizal as an elitist who believed that liberty must be earned by an educated nation. From the viewpoint of Constantino, these should be subjects for criticism to deepen our understanding of our national hero and to refrain from blind adoration. Rizal's exceptional contributions to our nation's consciousness and propaganda are not disregarded. In fact, it will forever be significant and ingrained in our society. Rizal's great patriotism is unfailingly honored. Veneration without understanding merely invites us to re-examine our heroic standards and become critical with the events that define the course of progress in our history.
Another point made by Renato Constantino in Veneration Without Understanding was that he suggested that Jose Rizal was an American-sponsored hero. Rizal was highlighted by the Americans taking advantage of his popularity at the time. Shining the light on Rizal and his actions might have taken away the spotlight on revolutionaries like Andres Bonifacio, the leader of the Katipunan. It could have been a ploy to win over the Filipinos' hearts, giving praise to the man who died for their country. They placed him in a high regard as a man who ignited the war with only words and a pen, hoping that his reformist ways could inspire the Filipino people to not go into war with them in the future.
As a group, we realized that Dr. Jose Rizal had other plans such as the reform. The reform was about the Philippines to be a part of Spain and have fairness between Spaniards. But not all Filipinos agreed to that said reform and led to the Katipunan Revolt. We also realized that Dr. Jose Rizal didn't join the revolution because he wanted a revolution that is well planned. He didn't want to fight when you know you don't have the upper hand. However, Bonifacio and his army went up against the Spaniards, but they lacked resources and led to defeat. That is why Dr. Jose Rizal wanted to be a reformist than revolutionist. As a reformist, Dr. Jose Rizal wanted a friendly connection with Spain first, then as soon as the Philippines is ready to stand on its own, then we are ready to gain independence. That's what Dr. Jose Rizal wanted for the country.
So now let's move forward to the analysis of the damage caused to the reputation of Dr. Jose Rizal because of anti-American sentiments. Recorded in Veneration Without Understanding by Renato Constantino, he said, and I quote, "It must be admitted, however, that the study of his life and works has developed into a cult distorting the role and the place of Rizal in our history." End of quote. This statement suggests that Rizal's reputation was glorified and exaggerated, that even the late hero's inaccuracies were downplayed and his principles were highlighted instead. It was because of many people dedicated their lives studying all about the life of the late hero. And for some obvious reasons, the Americans chose Rizal since he was a perfect example of their ideal hero. And Rizal never had a chance to win against the Americans since he was dead by the time they began their aggression. If he was a chosen hero, there would be no embarrassing anti-American quotation that could be attributed to him. Also, Rizal was a member of the elite, the class that the Americans were cultivating and building up for their leadership. The third one is from Teodoro A. Agoncillo, a Filipino historian, and he believed that Rizal is a reformist. His anti-Rizal sentiments are a
code word of his opposition to the American presence in the Philippines.
After understanding the opposition, it gave us a different view of Rizal and several realizations of his wishes for the Philippines. It was not that Rizal was opposing the revolution of the Filipino people, but he wanted a systematic and well-executed plan for them to achieve freedom. Instead of bloodshed, he wanted equality between the Spaniards and the Filipinos, which was against the wishes of the separatists. He imagined that the Philippines would possibly be a province of Spain, with the Filipinos having access to education and better opportunities. Then, when the people gain these rights, then they are ready for independence. In Rizal's mind, he wanted the people to be ready to rule a country of their own, because if the scenario does come along and they do achieve freedom without a proper plan, what comes next? The anti-Rizal historians were correct in calling Rizal a reformist, but he had his reasons. He wrote to educate the Filipino people on what's happening to the Philippines, in the chance that they do not stay ignorant, for them to wake up and see what's wrong with the status of their country. Realize they exert so much effort, work for hours that feel like days, but with no rewards, that justify the struggle they battle every day. Hence, Rizal eyed for equality and peaceful means to attain freedom, since he did not want more hardships for the people.
To end our presentation, we'd like to end it with a quote from Jose Rizal. I want to show to those who deprive people the right to love of country, that when we know how to sacrifice ourselves for our duties and convictions, death does not matter if one dies for those one loves, for his country and for others dear to him. Thank you for listening.